Once again, good evening to Masons at Work. Last night, Lyceum Lodge of Research had a wonderful presentation, and I've been assured by Mike Reinders and the team at Lyceum that they will have another one within the next 3 weeks, Mike, or 4 weeks. Again, I'm going to welcome you. Thank you for attending this presentation and hand you over to the coordinator, Mike Reinders.
Good evening, brethren. Welcome to another episode of Masons at Work. We're live from Johannesburg at the moment. Like always, we try and keep this light and fun. Tonight, I think we're gonna be doing some work. I think this is more on the business side of things as far as our lodges is concerned. But it's the first installment of a wonderful program that we're busy with at the moment. This is just the first in a long line of these episodes to come, and I'm sure all of us from junior newly made Masons to senior Masons, officers within lodges, I think everyone will find something to take away from these series. We're very privileged tonight to have with us the District Grand Mentor, Worshipful Brother Paul McKinley, will be handling the presentation, and he will be ably assisted by the District Grand Orator, Worshipful Brother Clive McKinley. Brethren, if you have any questions, please post them to the chat group. Alternatively, if you want to remain anonymous, just engage either myself or Brother Lance Epstein directly. We will then pose your question to the speakers. We will also have a Q&A session afterwards. And like I always say, there is no stupid questions. We're here to conduct our work and conduct our Masonic business. There is no stupid questions. Brethren, please feel free to ask away. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Worshipful Brother Paul McKinley. Paul, are you there? How are you this evening?
This evening's presentation was something that Professor Guy Charlesworth, together with Chris van Gaalen, have been looking at for quite a couple of years. Based on the success that they've had in the UK, we've been asked now to try and South Africanize it, to localize it, because there was such a huge success in the UK with regards to the membership pathway and lodges being grown to the capacity where they could then birth new lodges and charters were saved. So this is probably the best opportunity in our Masonic history in South Africa today to put a program like this on the ground, whether it be Mauritius, whether it be any of our neighboring countries. With the present pandemic and lodges being closed and enthusiasm just dwindling and members not being in a routine, not socializing, not interacting, lodges stand a chance of not getting up to full strength without having a plan in place. So the membership pathway is what we envisage is going to attract people to Masonry again, to give them purpose, to give lodges purpose, to give members enthusiasm for going. Because unless we make it more interesting than all the other alternatives out there, why do they want to dress up? Why do they want to put on a suit, come out at night, especially when it's cold or the weather's miserable or the traffic is backed up, when they could be sitting at home with their family or doing something else? So this is why this entire program is now being structured. We've simplified it, we've made it applicable, and we're going to be rolling it out through the entire district. Without killing you by a PowerPoint presentation, there are only 3 slides tonight. But what you will take away from that is far more than just 3 slides. So I'd like, Clive, if you wouldn't mind just opening up the slides.
Cool.
To begin with, this all centers around a purpose-driven lodge. This is where each lodge has to define their purpose. Now, I don't think there's many lodges that have actually sat down and asked themselves, what is our mission statement? What is our differentiator? What makes us different to any other lodge? And then, why should a candidate choose to join our lodge over another lodge? So we'll be engaging with each lodge and help them to define what what it is their purpose is, what is their character, what is the type of candidate that would benefit. Are they an IT lodge? Are they a lodge of handymen and people that are tradesmen? Are they lawyers? Are they aviators? Or are they just wanting to be a mixed group, trying to attract people that are like them? So without understanding what your lodge stands for and what type of candidate you're going to have, your retention rate is not going to be there, because you're going to find just someone to fill a seat, someone that can go through their initiation, so you've got something to do, instead of finding someone that's going to add value to your lodge and who will have the lodge adding value to their life. And like that, we're going to have lodges that grow. We're going to have lodges that have people that want to attend, that won't find excuses not to attend. And this goes down to a parable that I heard. And you can't mix people. I know that in brotherly love, we get taught that we will love one another like brothers, but if there aren't many interests, if someone is a chef and they're in a lodge full of people that are actuaries, they're not going to feel comfortable or have much to say at a festive board. But we could put them in a lodge with people who are service orientated in the service industry. So this is like the parable of a frog and a scorpion. Now, there was a scorpion that was coming down the river's bank, and he wanted to cross and get to the other side. And every time he approached one of the animals or insects at the side of the riverbank, they ran away because they knew that the scorpion would sting them. And eventually the scorpion came along a frog, a very trusting, calm little frog, and convinced this frog to put him on his back and take him across the river. But the frog said to the scorpion, what are you going to do? You might sting me. Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant. And the scorpion said, well, don't worry about it, because if I sting you, we both drown. So the frog, trusting the scorpion, climbed on his back, and they started to wade across the river. And halfway through, the scorpion stung the frog. And as they were about to go under the water and both drowned, the scorpion turned around to the frog and said, sorry, having disturbances here. The frog said to the scorpion, why did you sting me? Because you're now stinging me, and as a result, we're going to drown. And the scorpion said, well, it's in my nature. Knowing that it was in my nature, why did you let me on your back? And the frog said, it's in my nature. So we inherently have our own personalities. We have our natures, and some personalities just don't click. So within our recruitment process, I think it's very important to know what type of person, what type of candidate, when we're recruiting, we're having recruitment drives, what type of person are we going to click with as a lodge? Because if that's the case, we're going to have the most dynamic lodge meetings. We're going to have the most dynamic rituals and the most dynamic festive boards, because people click. Less conflict means more harmony. And that's what Masonry is all about. We don't want argy-bargy when we're going to lodge or snide comments. We want people that are genuinely like-minded, working towards a common purpose. So that's why we have a defined purpose. And the next point, Clark. The second point is capacity. We couldn't find a better word, but we're using capacity because a lodge with only 3 members doesn't have the capacity to fill all the roles needed to make a dynamic lodge. Because to roll this program forward, we're going to need personal mentors and sponsors. Now, the personal mentor is going to be encouraged to be the person that actually proposes a candidate. Because if you're going to put your name on a piece of paper and nothing else after the person is initiated, you've done the person a disservice. It's your responsibility, if you're going to take the responsibility of proposing someone into your lodge from before they're even initiated to help prepare them, all the way through to Royal Arch and beyond, it's your responsibility. You are their personal mentor. And this is something that we're going to be drumming home. It's not just about grabbing people, bringing them into the lodge, signing the papers, making yourself the proposer, making your next guy down the line the seconder. the person gets ignored when he gets brought into the festive board. This sort of dynamic is going to change, and it won't change unless we've got the capacity in each lodge. So we're looking at numbers, and lodges with the numbers are going to find it easier to roll this out. Lodges that are battling with their attendance at the moment, we're going to focus and we're going to support them. We're going to help them to get to a point where they have the capacity, that they can have dynamic meetings, where they can visit other lodges, where they can have a rehearsal because everyone arrives, where they can have dynamic committee meetings, where they decide on going forward what it is that they want to do and what it is they want to achieve. And on top of that, to have personal time for one-on-one discussions, whether it's at the festive board, whether it's meeting someone outside lodge. It's not just about coming to lodge for those few hours, shaking everyone's hand after having a meal and a drink and going home. This is a personal experience. This is where we build brotherly love. This is lifelong bonds. And that doesn't happen unless we make the effort at a lodge to have personal time, one-on-one with the brothers in our lodge. And if you're not prepared to have that with the brothers in your lodge, there's already a problem. Because if someone is a brother, you're naturally going to want to spend time with them. Clive, next one. Thank you very much. And the last part of having a purpose-driven lodge, we've isolated it down to commitment. Unless every member from the worshipful master, past masters, right down to the newest entered apprentice is embracing the change, is embracing the purpose that the lodge has chosen, they're not going to push themselves. They're not going to want to drive this process forward. And as a district, we look at this as being the anchor. This is the keystone that we're going to use to keep everything together. And everything in the district is going to solidify as membership grows, as people embrace the change, they push forward, because we cannot keep on doing what we have been doing for the last 300 years. As wonderful as Masonry is, times have changed. Lifestyles have changed, interests have changed, people have changed. So as an organization, we have to change. As lodges and individuals, we have to change. So that's what we are now putting behind the Purpose-Driven Lodge. And the quotation that aptly goes with this slide is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that was by Alexander Hamilton. We as an organization, we as lodges, and we as individuals have to stand for something. And by taking every lodge through this process and allowing them to see what it is that they stand for, what makes them different, and why should someone join their lodge, then having the capacity to take them through all of their degrees, visit lodges with them, take them to rehearsals and committee meetings, and have personal one-on-one time. The lodges need this, and we need the lodges to need this. So it's a hand in hand. We will support the district in being able to roll this out and embrace the change coming forward. And as a result, the district will see a massive amount of interest in Freemasonry because of the recruitment drives and because of the initiatives that we're going to be taking as a district. Now, the lodges that have the capacity, we want to introduce new members, especially members that fit. But in order for us to help find the right lodge for the right candidate, we need to know what each lodge's purpose is. So going forward, we're going to be sending information to each secretary and worshipful master and drive this process forward so that we have the foundation, so that if we see in the next slide, we can just take this forward and the sky is the limit. This is lovely talk that people have heard in business, because customer-centric approach is what most successful companies have. But even though we're not a business, we're a non-profit organization, we have to be member-centric. And to have a member-centric approach is the new approach that we're going to be having going forward, coming out of the problems and the challenges we've had for the last year and a half, not being able to meet. Because as Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It doesn't happen. But throughout history, we've seen organizations try and do the same thing over and over, not keep up with the times, not keep up with the dynamics of the groups that they're trying to attract. And those organizations, those companies have failed. The most dynamic companies in the world are the ones that are member-centric, customer-centric. And our customer is the entered apprentice, is the fellow craft, is the master mason, is the person that we want to come through the door every single meeting. And the 4 steps that we have to the member-centric approach is recruit, match, support, involve. So we'll go through those so that it makes a little bit more sense. This goes together with the lodge knowing what type of candidate they want to attract. So we're not going to just accept anyone that knocks on the door and wants to be a mason and hasn't gone to jail and is over the age of 18 and can pay their dues. That's not a requirement. Whether you believe in God, it's one of the standard questions, but it's not a defining quality. So recruitment of quality candidates is going to be up to every lodge, and they're going to find it easier finding quality candidates because they're going to be quality lodges. They're going to have a mission statement. They're going to know what it is they're driving towards. And as a result, they're going to get people to climb on their boat. That's exactly what we were saying. As district, we're going to match the candidates to the lodges, assist the lodges in a new approach to interviewing and pre-interviewing and preparing candidates for interviews as well as for their initiations. And these 2 are going to be driven by key people in the lodge. The first one is going to be a lodge membership officer. This is a new portfolio that's going to be open, and the lodge membership officer doesn't have to be a past master, doesn't even have to be a master mason. It just has to be a dynamic person that loves the lodge, is driving this process forward, and wants to make every candidate feel as if this is the place they want to come to every month. We're going to be supporting each candidate and nurturing them through every step. I've seen so many times where lodges have got entered apprentices that have visited, and they're not visited with anyone from their own lodge, or they've got junior members of their own lodge who sit alone at a festive board. There are many times that we have people that are not supported, not nurtured. Now, there are a lot of people coming into Masonry, young people that are seekers. They're truth seekers. They're looking for knowledge. They're looking for esoteric answers. They're looking for more than just coming to lodge, learning ritual, having dinner, having drinks, and going home. So even though their interests might not be the same as everybody else, we still have to nurture them. We still have to support them, put them in touch with Lyceum Lodge of Research, put them in touch with other brethren that might be able to take them under the wing and just support them in that step. So supporting them from pre-interview all the way through to Royal Arch, all the way through to the higher degrees, and allowing them to even find the right fit in the additional orders that meet their interests, so they can add value and these orders can add value to them. And the number one is in being involved and being engaged with these candidates, with every member at all times. If someone's having a tough time and the almoner reads out that their wife is ill or their daughter's going through a problem or there's a challenge, there's nothing stopping every member of the lodge from contacting that member once a week, once a month, just sending a WhatsApp, having a phone call, being engaged with that person so that they feel as if they are valued, which they are. Because if your own family member was not going through a good time, I'm sure that most of you, if not all of you, would be on the phone to them every day, or at least every second day, and just being engaged. How are you? Is there anything I can do? Can I come and visit? Do you want a coffee? So this is the member-centric approach that Freemasonry allows us the opportunity to have. It's not just about attending lodge meetings. It's not just about attending committee meetings or learning ritual. This is about the brotherly love that's going to be formed. This is going to be driven by your lodge mentor and the worshipful master, because the lodge mentor is going to be the person who's behind guiding them, nurturing them, mentoring them, training them on what Masonry is about, what the options are going forward, and what the bigger picture is. And the worshipful master is the one that is driving the entire lodge. This entire process is driven from the worshipful master. So together with the lodge mentor, they are going to be making sure that we don't do the same thing over and over and over again. Because if I think of a story from Plato, Plato was sitting at the side of the road and he was just watching the travelers walk by. And there was a traveler that approached him because Plato looks like a knowledgeable, genuine, wise man, asked him a piece of advice. And he said, "Kind sir, I'm traveling to the next village. And I just need to know, what are the people like there? Because I'm going with a view to moving my family. We're going with a view to changing our life because we're just looking at having a change." And Plato said to the man, "Well, how are the people in your previous village? How are the people where you came from?" And he said, "Well, in Rome, the people were they were horrible. They were mistrusting. They were ruthless. They were gossips. They were unsupportive. They were terrible, terrible people. And we're glad if we can move our entire family away from Rome because they're just horrible people." And Plato said, "Well, you might find that the people in the next village are much the same." And there was another traveler that came along a little bit later and approached Plato and asked him the same question. And Plato asked the same question in return because most of the philosophers gave questions as answers and not answers as answers. And he said to the man, "Well, how are the people in the village where you came from?" And he said, "Well, I come from Rome and we're sad to leave Rome, even though we want to change. The people there are so lovely. They've embraced us. They've looked after us. They've always cared for us. I've never come across a people that are just that beautiful. And well, we hope that the people in the next village are going to be the same." And Plato smiled and he said, "Well, you might find that the people in the next village are much the same." So based on the story, and we have a look at our own lives and our own lodges, whatever we see as what it is, that determines the reality of the lodge. If we see the lodge as boring, if we see the lodge as repetitive, if we see the lodge as undynamic, that's exactly what it's going to be. Whether we stay in masonry, whether we join another lodge, whether we go to another organization, it's going to be boring and repetitive and just unexciting. But similarly, if we see it as being dynamic, being innovative, being inspiring, being the answer to certain esoteric questions we might have, we're going to see that wherever we go, whether we visit another lodge, whether we visit another organization. And that's the type of enthusiasm we're going to then attract our new members. With our member-centric approach, we're going to then have a successful, sustainable approach. And that's exactly the approach that we want. We want something that's not going to be a one-year plan, a two-year plan. We're looking at this being an evolution of a plan, something that's going to continuously evolve, continuously be sustainable, so that Freemasonry can be always applicable to the times. We don't want something that appears to be outdated, something that's not applicable, something that's boring, something that's just full of old fuddy-duddies, dressing up and reciting drama. This is something that is dynamic. Freemasonry is exciting, but we have to plan. And as Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So the plan is that annually, every lodge will be encouraged to sit down and write their lodge objectives for the entire year. So to have a plan, so that already the ship is moving in one direction. And then every quarter to have a quarterly implementation strategy, so that you're looking every 3 months at how far you've come and what you're going to implement for the next quarter. So the plan is the most important, because if you're planning 1 month ahead, there is no succession planning in place. There is no lodge meeting structure in place. There's no, you're being reactive instead of proactive. And that's how a lot of people are, and a lot of organizations are. They wait for the boat to start sinking before they start bailing water, instead of being proactive and maintaining the boat. So this is our way of implementing this. And district as well as lodges are going to be recruiting candidates through active recruitment drives under each chain they have certain lodges and certain geographical areas that we're going to be running recruitment drives with. With these recruitment drives, we're going to then be teaching all the proposers on how to prepare the candidates, teaching the lodges on how to interview so that you get the right fit, not just asking the basic 3 questions. Then the initiation, second and third degrees, together with interesting lectures. This is how we're going to inspire them. We're going to motivate them. We're going to keep them attending lodges, because by each member of the lodge putting everything they have into learning the words, making it meaningful, creating memories, creating something that those candidates then want to go do for the next generation of candidates. That's part of what we want to do. We want to start inspiring, because if we're not inspiring, what has every candidate that joins Freemasonry got to work towards? If we can do something beautifully and elegantly and with heart, and it has an impact on them, and this was my own experience, that's why I love to present ritual. That's why I love to learn it, because it made such an impact on me whenever someone, including my proposer, did a piece of ritual for me from his heart, and you could feel that they did it just for you. That's what we're going to encourage each person that attends Masonry to get involved with, regardless whether they're a past master. Just get involved. And that also includes visiting other lodges, getting involved with charity events and social events, because this is part of the brotherly love. This is part of the camaraderie. This is how we make a difference, because it's not just about, like I said, going to lodge, having a drink, having a meal and going home. This is a lot more. This is about supporting candidates who are coming in and joining other lodges, especially weaker lodges or lodges that don't have active membership. So we can do that. Charity is our way of touching the world around us. That's our way of spreading the light of Masonry into communities and into the country. And social is an absolutely wonderful way of having a recruitment activity with everything that you do. If you have friends, if you have family, if you have colleagues, and they're invited to a dynamic social event, something where they can see that we're brothers, we love each other, we support each other, we have fun, we joke, they're going to think, well, maybe I need something like that. Maybe this is something that I can look into having. But if we're boring and we're quibbling amongst ourselves and we're not even having social events, that's not how we're going to be attracting people into our lodges. And in any corporate as well as successful nonprofit organization, there has to be evaluation. Evaluation is quarterly and annually. So based on what they've planned, then quarterly and annually to assess and evaluate the success. And based on that, the next annual and quarterly implementations can be adjusted, can be amended and made better. Something that we have decided that will be a great asset is to have lodge membership surveys and feedback sessions. In Norwood Lodge especially, they have this as an informal thing where their mentor has a group for non-past masters. So from Master Mason down, they're on a group only with the mentor. So there are no silverbacks, there's no old boys involved, it's only the new members. And the new members can share whether or not they feel the junior deacon shouldn't have shouted at me and told me to do this, or I don't think that the way that happened was very nice, or I enjoyed that. I enjoyed what this person did in lodge or how they presented the ceremony. So this is a very informal way of getting feedback. And by asking certain questions, you get the right feedback. So the lodge mentors are going to be encouraged to have a group where they have all the junior non-past masters on. And this is going to be driven by the mentor themselves. And all of that information is going to be kept and fed back to districts so that we can see what is it that people like? What is it the members don't like? What is it within that particular lodge that maybe needs tweaking or adjusting? Is there a particular member that needs to be chatted to or a particular member that needs to be congratulated? So all of these things will then fit into the successful sustainability of this program. So I know it's only 3 slides. It hasn't been very long, but you can see that something like this is definitely what, coming out of the lockdown COVID drama that we've all been through, that we're still going through, lodges are going to benefit from. And lodges are going to drive this wholeheartedly, purely because why would someone want to come back to lodge when they've had 2 years of not having to go to lodge? 2 years of not having to learn ritual, 2 years of not having to set up a festive board or set up a lodge room. So this is something that we're going to drive so that it can then be their new normal, their new way of going forward. And by us doing that, we can ensure that our district will survive. Because if we keep on doing the same things we were doing before this problem happened, of us not being able to go to lodge and not being able to keep the momentum going, if we carry on doing the same things we were, masonry in South Africa will die. Lodges will close and there will be no purpose for us to have a district. But if we're adding value through this membership pathway, and we're guiding the lodges to attract members, how to introduce themselves, how to retain their members, I believe that as a district, we're going to just explode. Our numbers are going to explode. Our lodges are going to explode. And Freemasonry is just going to be able to add more benefit to more people, because the more number of people that are going to get affected by coming to the repeated rituals of moral fiber, upstanding behavior, and all of the things that we teach within our lodges, these are things that more people will be attracted to. So I would greatly appreciate any of your questions or comments on this initiative. This initiative is 100% driven and supported by our top down in district, our district Grand Master, incoming district Grand Master, our brother chair. Every single person from the top down is already supporting this initiative. But we just need comments from whoever's here, whether you want to write your comments, whether you want to speak your comments, and we can just open it up to the orator, to the brother chair, to anyone who might be able to give a little bit of insight as well as myself. And then from there, we're going to solidify this process and we're going to roll it out under each chain to the lodges within their area, their cluster, and lodge by lodge. Thank you very much, Brother Chair.
Thank you, Brother Paul. That was most informative, and I'm sure everyone will take something positive away from this tonight. And just thanks again for all the time and effort with this material to be able to present it to us tonight. A fantastic job. I think everyone will agree with me there. Then I'm going to throw you into the deep end immediately. We have got a few questions that were sent during the talk. I'm going to just start off with the first anonymous question. Is the new membership officer position in the lodge not just the same as the lodge mentor? How do they differ from each other? Thanks, Brother Paul.
Perfect. If you just look at their names to begin with, the membership officer is responsible for matching the members or potential members up with the lodge. They're not involved with the actual mentorship or education of the members. So it could be the same person, but it would be better to have it as different people, because one will then drive membership and one will drive education, if we need to simplify that.
Thank you, Brother Paul. Brother Bob Clute, you've got your hand up. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that, Brother Paul. Very illuminating. I'm thinking in terms of now building on existing ties, and also in terms of recruitment. There are two things, very strong things, which are in our favor, ironically, at the moment in South Africa, in terms of both of those aspects, recruitment and consolidation. The first is the fact that we've not been able to meet. We are social beings. This is something which we can play to our advantage, to say to people, you can get together with a bunch of people who think the same way as you, who believe the same sort of things that you do, who might be slightly different in certain ways that you can hone your attributes on and so on. That's the one aspect that perhaps more importantly to my mind in terms of the whole Masonic concept, there's probably not been a better time in South Africa for a renewed commitment to basic values. I believe this is I don't want to go into that obviously for obvious reasons, but this is something that we can exploit as Masons in terms of reaching out to the community. There must be ways and means of doing that, and I leave it to the intelligent people, the chains, and the intelligent people to find a way of actually marrying that concept with recruitment and also with maintenance of our existing membership. We need that commitment, and the way to that commitment, and a good way to that commitment, no matter what you believe, no matter what your faith, no matter what your background, no matter who you are, is possibly to be found through Masonry. Give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you, worshipful brother. You're probably one of the most intelligent people that I've met, and you play yourself so humble and you play yourself so down. But thank you very much for your input.
Thank you. You should get around more.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs taught in psychology, one of the basic needs that someone has on their way to self-actualization is a sense of belonging. This order can give a person that sense of belonging. And if we have it so that the lodges are running in such a way that each person gets the validation that they need, that need will be then taken care of. They can then evolve more within their own personal development. But if they don't have a sense of belonging, already they're lacking that step that they'll need in order to self-actualize, to know thyself. And our process is, in essence, know thyself. But to begin with, we need to help each member to feel as if they belong. They have value, they are needed. And as a result, they will grow. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Brother Bob and Brother Paul. A lot of compliments coming in for you on the chat group. Everyone appreciated it. You know, things like inspiring talk, that type of comments is quite common in the comments section at the moment. Brother Lance, is there any questions that you received from the audience?
So there isn't, Mike, but what I would like to say is looking at the faces, looking at the comments, looking at the current chains, looking at very senior Masons, grand officers, and then some newer brethren. I think some of them are asking the question, what's new? We've been discussing this for ages. How are we going to make a difference? And there's Dave Gamble and Professor Guy. I'm going to call on you. But brethren, essentially the pathway was developed by the United Grand Lodge of England. And what they noticed at the outset is that 20% of initiates had resigned before they became Master Masons. And after rolling out the pathway, it went down to 10%. The question is, we are not England, we're South Africa, we're completely different. And how do we... And if I could, possibly Professor Guy, who was part of this initially, to maybe give us 2 minutes on his thoughts, because actions speak louder than words, brethren. I'll be speaking to the converted. I can see who's on every week. And it simply means we have to take it out to the lodges, our lodges, the district. So if I could, Right Worship Brother Guy, ask you for maybe just 2 minutes to give us some input from your side.
Well, hi, am I on? Can you hear me?
You're on.
Look, you're catching me short here, but look, first of all, I think you've got to remember that a lodge is made up of a variety of persons, individuals, and I think that's what makes actually a successful lodge. If we were all the same, how boring, how dull. We are all different beings, and we interact with one another slightly differently as well. And I think that's the first point I want to make. The second one is that we do Freemasonry for fun. We do it because we want to have fun, we want to enjoy it. And unless you're actually getting enjoyment, unless you're actually having fun, I don't believe that you're going to have a successful lodge. So whatever you do, whether you have a program, a pathway to follow, a guideline, that's fantastic. That sets the guideposts in the snow, as it were. But you've got to have fun on the way. And I think by having fun, you learn a hell of a lot. And I think there is obviously room for huge improvements in our order. The greybacks have long been the wise men in the East and waving and all the rest of it, you know the joke. I think there's got to be, we've got to actually bring on board the young Mason, the person who's joining. Does he actually know why he's becoming a Freemason? Most people, when they join Freemasonry, don't really have a full understanding of why on heck they've actually joined the order. That's the number. That's very important in my view. And I've chatted with guys, and you know, they have, oh, we want to become this and this and this and all the rest of it, but do they really want to become Freemasons? So I think we've got to start right at the beginning. We've got to start with who we actually identify to become Freemasons. And yes, we look for the quality of the candidate. And I think we have to have, there are certain guidelines which we have to become a member. You may not all agree with it, but you have to have a belief in a supreme being. There's no question about it. And that is very important. And if the candidate doesn't have that, then I'm afraid he's not going to fit in with the rest of it, of the body. So I think these things are thoughts which are running through my mind. I was actually exposed to some of the pathway at a conference in Nairobi. I went up to Nairobi, and the East African Masons were developing this, and this goes back at least 3 or 4 years ago. So we are kind of behind, as it were, in terms of what's happening in England and in other districts overseas. But I don't think that's not the end of the world. I think we have, as been pointed out, now is the time to actually examine it ourselves here in South Africa, especially with the COVID around, etc., what we've been through. Now is the time to actually get ourselves on the path. But I think there needs to be, as I say, I come back to my first point, and that there's got to be an enjoyment. If you come down heavily with rules and regulations, and if you come down with, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, etc., then I think you lose the spirit of Freemasonry. And there's got to be a naturally inquiring mind into some of the esoteric field. That's what I think. So I leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you, Right Worship Brother Guy. Brethren, we've tried to keep this forum fun and down to 45 minutes. We did start at about 10 past. In closing, before I hand over, and this is meant to be Mike as the coordinator, Brother Charles, Brother Leighton as Assistant District Grand Masters, in closing, is there anything you would like to add, if I may put you on the spot?
Firstly, brethren, congratulations to Paul and Clive. I think what you've put together here this evening was absolutely magnificent. I echo the comments that everyone has said online. Congratulations to you, Lance, and to Mike for coordinating it. I think it was a superb job. To add, I don't think there's too much that I can add other than to say, to be successful at anything, you need a strategy. I think Masonry is no different. What Paul has outlined here this evening is the formation of a plan and structure, and that is important. It will be great for us all to get back to work, to get back to some form of routine, and from that routine, we can start implementing these plans, which will lead to the success of the lodges. There's no doubt it's a long road ahead of us. We've all found something else to do in the last 2 years, and that we'll need that structure, that camaraderie, that self development to kick in again. But I'm a fan of the president's talks. I think what's being done every week or every 2 weeks is starting to get us back into some form of routine again. So thank you, Lance.
Thank you. Charles, anything you'd like to add?
The dogs are quiet. I can now chat. Firstly, yeah, thank you to Paul and to Clive. I really enjoyed the talk. And I think it's going to be extremely beneficial that we got this sort of framework, which we can then work around. It's a bit difficult without having some sort of structure in place. You might sort of focus on a particular area, but there's all sorts of things that can be drawn in here. And I think it's important that we have such a thing at this stage of the game. I mean, we've had 18 months of, let's say, drifting in the wilderness to a certain extent. And it's going to be good to get back to work and work around these various points. I'm looking forward to it. I have no doubt there's a lot of work ahead of us. We know that we've sort of gotten out of the routine, and I'm now talking about the diehards. And I know that this pathway is directed specifically at some of our newer brethren, newer members, but equally, I think it can apply to some of the members, who have been around even longer. We've got to get back on track, and this will give us something to assist us in that process.
Great, thank you, Charles.
The Chair, can I just finish with one word?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Just to add to what Professor Guy Charlesworth said, there's a quotation by Henry Ford when he first started his production facility of the Ford motor vehicles. And he said to every single one of his employees, he brought them all into the warehouse, and he said, I need to give you one secret, one tip for life. I need to explain to you how you will never work again in your life. And none of them could believe it because they needed the job. He said, if you enjoy, if you have fun, if you enjoy what you do when you come here every day, you will never work a day in your life. And if we can have that same approach to masonry, it'll never be work. If we've got one meeting, if we've got 4 meetings for the week, if this is what we're doing and it's bringing us joy, if we enjoy it, it's not work anymore. It's fun. And whatever we do, even this new pathway, we'll make it fun. We'll make it so that everyone enjoys it and it adds value. It doesn't add a burden. It's not another box they need to tick and another responsibility, but it's just part of adding to the value and making it more enjoyable for each person involved. So I'll leave you with those words.
Thank you, Brother Lance. Thank you, Brother Paul. Thank you, Brother Clive, for all the effort you put in. This was, again, one of those evenings that was just enjoyed by all, and I think a lot of good work was done here tonight. Professor Guy, like always, thank you for those inspiring words. Also gives us something to take home tonight. Brother Charles, Brother Leighton, thank you for your contributions as well. And from my side, brethren, it was truly an honor to be able to host this and spend this evening with you. From my side, that's all. Stay safe, stay warm. Brethren, I thank you.